Warning. The following is extremely addictive content. The original Savage Podcast may cause increased levels of success, happiness, and completely transform your life. You've been warned.
Welcome back, everybody. It is that time of the week again. Time for, you know what it is, the original Savage Podcast. It is going to be another banger. So strap in, get the iPads, get the notepads, whatever you take notes on, because this one is going to be chock full of them. So without further ado, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hey, my name is Alyssa Herman. I am a registered nurse and an athlete transformation coach. Most of my work is based on helping athletes post-sport or about to leave sport transition into life and find that same fulfillment, same impact that sports had on them in adult life for the rest of their life. So that's my quick spiel.
Yeah. So that's what we talk about a lot, is that transition from the athletic spot to business or life, and how athletics transitions to success in everyday life, or in business, whatever. And that's why I love having athletes on. And so whenever, we got in contact, I thought it would be a really great episode because, that insight is not just from you, it's from all the other athletes that you helped on that transition process. And while we're talking about transition, I'll just jump into the question that I always ask everybody. In your opinion, what is that one thing that really helped make a lasting change for not just athletes, but just in general, anybody? What's that one kind of catalyst for next level performance or some sort of lasting?
Oh, the one word that kind of comes to my mind right now is the word decision. When you decide that you are going to do something, or when you decide that you want to do something, oftentimes you figure it out. And what I've seen with many, many clients, with athletes, with even just as an RN at the bedside, there are usually limiting beliefs that are stopping us from actually fully committing to the idea that we're going to do something. And we just spend 80% of our time trying to figure it out. I've heard so many people say, well, once I figure out how to, or once I do this, then it's like, well, what would happen if you just decided that you were going to do it? What would happen is that you would go and find the next thing to do to make it happen. So that's sort of what comes up when you ask me that question in this moment.
Action. Yeah, action, right? It's not about the planning. It's not about the analysis. It's the action, the decision to act, right? That's so key because so many people want to be better. So many people want to perform well. So many people want to open a business.
Yeah.
But it's that decision, like you said, and that goes perfectly with what I've talked about in a ton of other episodes, being one of my thought process on how life is this organic journey, right? We have a vision of where we want to be, and we just kind of start walking towards that vision. There's not necessarily a laid out plan. Yes, you can have checkpoints like, hey, whenever I leave my house, I'm going to stop at the gas station. There's checkpoints on my way to whatever that destination, my final destination might be. There's different checkpoints, but it's not a set path. It's an organic journey. And when you get to a crossroads, you've got to make a decision on which one's right in the moment. In the moment, I can't just stand there, right? If I want to get to that vision, if I want to get to that final destination, I can't just stand there and say, well, I'm thinking about going left. I'm thinking about going right. Whenever I figure out which way I'm going to go, I'm going to get there. It doesn't work that way. You can't just sit there and look at it. You have to make that decision. And then obviously along the way, there's more and more and more decisions. You look back at it and it looks like a tree. There's thousands of different paths you could have taken, and you took the one that was right for you in the moment. It's this organic journey of growth and transformation and all those things. But I think that's exactly what it is. It's a decision. You just have to make the decision.
Yeah, definitely. And I find that many of us, even for myself, I make decisions that kind of take me in this loop. And oftentimes it's a decision that you haven't made before that helps you come over here. I was just talking about that with a client yesterday. She is I think she's a project manager. She's going to say, I'm not a project manager when she listens to this, but some sort of project manager wants to start a business doing retreats. She was a rower in high school, and she is killing it over here. She is a top performer. She has a bunch of managerial roles, all of these things, but it's not the right kind of success for her. And she just keeps making decisions that are keeping her in this pool over here, or really she needs to make one decision to bring her over here. And once she makes that one different step, maybe hiring a coach or Googling, how do you start a retreat, or saying to her job, I actually can't work 12 hours a day. I can only work 11 hours a day or 10, and using those 2 hours over here. It's those small things that sort of, like you said, they just kind of build upon one another and push you over. But until you decide that you are actually going to make something happen, you are going to continue to do things that hold you back.
That's a great point. Is it can't just be a decision in general. You can't just be like, I'm going to put it on. Like, it has to be a decision that takes you in the right direction. So, every time we do this, every time there's an answer, there's obviously qualifying questions or qualifying things that go along with it. It can't just be the answer of the one thing, right? There's other things that surround that one thing that matter a lot as well. And so I'm glad that you kind of put it in that light of, we make decisions that keep us in this. But a lot of the times I think that these decisions, these circular decisions, they're autopilot almost, right? We're just on autopilot making these decisions. That's like our subconscious just automatically doing it for us. We don't have to do much. And when we want to make a change, we have to say, pump the brakes, come to a full stop, and make the left-hand turn, right? We've got to make that decision to depart the path that we're on, that cycle that we're in, that autopilot. We got to take it off of autopilot, grab the reins, and actually control the direction. And so that's so impactful that you said it that way, because it's, again, not just decisions, blind decisions. It has to be a targeted decision towards the vision or the goal or whatever the change might be.
Yeah. And you just made me think of something too. This is obviously easier said than done, right? Decisions hold weight. And for many of us, when we're trying to do something new or go back to something we used to be good at, this decision holds a lot of weight or a lot of beliefs about ourselves. And we're not actually struggling with the decision itself. We're struggling with what the secondary effects are of that decision. And so something I like to often ask my clients, a couple of things, but one thing is, what's the secondary payoff of not having what you want? So what do you get to do right now that you won't be able to do when you reach your goal? Because every single situation you're in, there is a negative impact. If it's sitting at home all day and you want to be someone who's exercising, the secondary payoff is you don't have to get up. And then the struggles are that maybe you don't have the energy you want, or you don't have the aesthetic you want. Whereas on the flip side, if you are someone who goes to the gym consistently and is working out, the secondary payoff is you do have that energy. But the negatives is that you don't have as much time to yourself to decompress after work, or you have to start being around people and you get anxious, or you have to see other people doing something and there's this piece of jealousy that comes through. And so oftentimes when you understand what the secondary payoff is of being where you are, there's a lot more empowerment and autonomy in the decision you actually make. And most of us don't want to look at that stuff. And when we make new decisions, it kind of forces all of this muck to come up, and then you have to face it. And so most of the time when it's a decision, it's like, well, yeah, I guess I could just get up. It's like, well, usually it's the what happens after, or what that makes you feel or think when you do it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to go back to like the get up off the couch, and some of us hey, some of us are older athletes as well, and we have lots of joint popping and crackling, and we, getting up kind of hurts. Okay, I'm just kidding, but you're exactly right. The decision has effects, right? There's effects that come after. So, I think that's where that internal audit comes from, right? You have to internalize the decision-making process and understand, am I just saying this because it's the cool thing to say? Like, oh, I want to start a business because it's the catchphrase of the 2020s, right? Everybody wants to be a business owner. And there's so many people that'll talk. There's so many people that'll say they want to do it. And I've seen people that do it, but they didn't actually want to be a business owner. They just did it because they had some money laying around that they could throw at something, and they hope it made them a business owner. They didn't really want, right? They didn't have what it takes to be the business owner, but they didn't take the time to internalize it and really understand what it meant to make that decision. And I think that's a lot of the times, especially as athletes, we're used to just performing, right? We're used to just being able to do it and getting out there. And I know I talk to the kids that I coach in baseball about it. I've talked to people that, in performance coaching all the time. It's that, hey, I have the confidence in myself that no matter what problem I put myself in, I can figure it out and get myself out of it. And it's, that's that athletic mindset is like, hey, just dive head first into it, get it done. You'll be able to figure it out. Just react. That reaction. But when it's something that's beyond that basic level of performance, when it's something like, hey, I want to go that extra mile from where I'm at. I want to be able to be at the top. I'm tired of being at the middle or at the top 5%. I want to get to the top 1%, whatever. Then it takes a different gear, right? And that's what we're talking about. We're not talking about just basic decision to just get through. We're talking about really making a huge difference and being at that elite level of whatever it is that we're trying to get to. That's where we have to slow down on the decision-making and understand the consequences, the payoffs, like you said, the secondary payoffs. You got to understand the consequence. You got to understand the payoffs. You've got to understand the sacrifices that it's going to take. And we have to internalize all that and see, hey, put yourself in the moment after the decision's been made. Let's go ahead and look into the future and say, hey, I've already made this decision. What does that look like for me? And is that the happiness I'm chasing? Is that the performance I'm chasing? Is that what I want to see? Because a lot of the times that's what we are doing as athletes, chasing that next level because we think it's what we're supposed to do because we're so used to play sports in, grade school and in rec ball, and then play sports in middle school and high school, and then try to play college and then try to play pro. It's this rung of a ladder. We're always working towards getting to the next level. And then when we transition into something different, we're still trying to do the same thing. But it might not be in our best interest. It might not be where we perform best. It might not be what's going to bring out the elite for us because we may, again, sometimes athletes can be people pleasers. That's why they were in front of a crowd, performing is because they're people pleasers. And so a lot of times they can just take on extra responsibility that isn't needed, that, like you said, your client is working 12-hour days and they need to put a little bit of time over here. It's hard for them to say no and be able to give themselves time for something different. And so that's really a big piece, is that internalization of the consequences, the benefits, the sacrifices, and to understand what is that decision going to lead to. And that will give the conviction to the decision, and it'll stop the process of, well, when I figure it out. Because again, like you said, a lot of the times we're just trying to buy ourselves time with that, I'm going to figure it out, because we don't want the secondary effects of it.
Yeah, for sure. And to go on my athlete pedestal here too, for many athletes, we were taught that when we perform and when we do things at an elite level, it means that we are worthy. It means that people tell us we did a good job. It means we feel good. And so all of that gets internalized when you transition from athlete to adult. And we say, when did I feel really good before? Oh, it was when I let my identity be something external to myself. It was when I pushed myself to the absolute limit and had this all or nothing mentality. It's when I was the best, and then I became the best at something else, and the best and the best and the best. And so we end up just chasing and gathering accolades for years, trying to find this, and you're talking about this like understanding of what it is that's driving us to get what we want. We're trying to find that sense of worthiness for many of us, or this feeling of accomplishment that came from sports. But the truth is that no matter what you do, until you understand that internally, until you're able to find that internally, you're just going to keep climbing whatever, whether it's a corporate ladder or whatever fitness ladder, like wherever you go, you'll just keep climbing it, and it's not going to feel as exciting. I was talking to someone the other day about he works with someone who is in sales and makes like multi-million-dollar deals. And there was one time this huge deal came through. He's a former pro NFL player, or former pro MLB player. I can't remember, but the whole room, all the people in the room were cheering and excited and like, oh my God, we finally had this big break in our company. And he's just sitting there thinking, this doesn't even compare to hitting that home run or getting this touchdown. Like nothing has that same rush that you would get in sports or when you were younger, when you were more open to those things, especially when you're an elite performer. And we just constantly try and chase that feeling externally.
And sometimes it leads to the downside of that cycle too. We almost look for the letdown sometimes, because it's like, even in the success, we feel let down sometimes. And so then there's times where we just can get into that cycle of, well, it's not worth it to chase that, because it's like, it's just going to let us down. So we almost look for that letdown, look for that reason to get out of it. But yeah, it's about building a new reality and building a new belief system that this is where you belong. Whatever it is that is true to you. And that's why I believe it's super important to have a vision, not necessarily goals, because I think goals are limiting beliefs in certain aspects. I think that there's a vision that you should have. And again, that's part of that organic journey that I talked about. And so that's where it really comes into, hey, what is it for you what does success look like for you? What does happiness look like for you in that journey? Right? Because not everybody has that same system of grind, and that's what makes them happy. Look, there's tons of people out there that the grind does make, right? That's kind of the fitness professionals' game, is they're grinding for the one extra vein to pop out of their arm, right? It's like the grind is what they enjoy, the time in the gym grinding, enjoy. And there's other people out there that they just want to show up and do something, right? They don't want to they don't want the grind part. And for people, it's different. And again, that's where you have to understand that internal audit process of what gives me that.
Yeah.
Push.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
Yeah. A great question I like to ask is, what do you think you'll have then that you don't have now? So once you get this thing you're chasing, or this vision, this dream, this life, what do you think is going to be different? What actually are you wanting to receive from having that? For many people, it's like, oh, I want to have time freedom, and I want to have more money and travel. Okay, why? What are you going to feel when you have those things that you don't feel now? And for many people, that answer isn't always clear, right? Because if we're talking about just kind of following the steps of what's next, especially in the US, something that I believe strongly is that here there's a big desire for security, for comfort, and for settling, right? So you want to find a job, be really good at your job, move up if it's time in the way that the business tells you, buy a house, keep your savings, find a family, and that's the American dream. And for many of us, that's not the dream. For me, that sounds terrible. I don't want to do that. That's why I changed jobs every year. My whole adult life is because I would do something, I'd get bored, and I'd do something, I'd get bored. And it wasn't until I sat down, okay, well, what do I actually want from the things I'm trying to do? And for me, it's the flexibility. I want to have flexibility to do what I want when I want. That's just part of who I am. I want to be able to provide to the people, for the people I care about. So that is something that drives me. I like to have to push, right? So I'm one of those people that I like the grind. I like pushing. I like the growth mindset, which is why I work in what I do. But I used to be a registered nurse at the bedside in the ICU, seeking that adrenaline rush there. And then I didn't like working in that system. And so I went and worked at a clinic job and didn't like it there. And so I thought, oh, let me get more education. I was getting my nurse practitioner degree. What do you know? I didn't like that either. And all of those things is because I was just doing it. I thought that was the next thing to do. And like you said, that internal audit, once I decided, there's that word, but to ask myself and not ask like the outside world what it is I was searching for, the next step sort of became clear. That was a bit of a rant, but anyway.
No, that's exactly what we're talking about. Like, there's so much of this, we just go through the motions because it's the thing to do, or it's the hot button word, right? Like you said, you'll ask people, hey, what is it that you'll have then? And they say, oh, time freedom. Hey, if you're starting a business, you're not going to have time freedom. Just that.
Right.
You're not going to have time freedom.
And time freedom to do what? And then there's the question, well, what do you do with your free time now? Oh, you fill it up with a bunch of other shit? Well, guess what? You're never going to have time freedom until you address that.
Yeah, and there's so many other things on top of it that have to get done and shifted. And it's like, hey, listen, if you're struggling to make this decision to just start something, we got a lot of work to do to get you to that time freedom place as a business owner, as a whatever it might be that you're trying to do. Because if you don't have time freedom now as a less successful person, then the time freedom is not necessarily going to be there as a more successful person, because you're going to have more responsibilities. If you don't know how to, say, compartmentalize, then it's one of those things that you're going to have to work on along the way. And I think that that's what gets lost too, is I think that some people get lost in the fact that, like, they think the work is just to start the journey. They don't realize that the work is a continuous thing, right? And you have to put in more work at the end. You see less results or less glaring results, but you have to continue to do it. And a good example is yesterday I'm working on pitching with my son, and I'm talking to him about his mental routine, saying, hey, you have to talk about your triggers to yourself. Here's the things that you have to keep in mind right before you go. Say this, 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 and this. And I would say it for him, and he was doing well. I said it for him, he did well. And we did it like 10 times where I said it before and he did well. The second I didn't say it, because he got comfortable, he didn't say it to himself either, because he was relying on me to. And as a coach, that's the one thing that a lot of people fall victim into, is this coaching of making the person need. They can perform when you're standing there. They can do it when you're there with them. But what do they do when you're not? What do they do in the moment that they actually need to perform? Because most of the time, we're not going to be sitting there holding their hand when it happens. And that's what I try to teach him all the time is, listen, dude, when you're out there and you're standing in the center of the field and everybody's staring at you, that's when you got to perform. This right here in the backyard, this is nothing. So if you can't take, a little bit of criticism right now, what are you going to feel like when you're in a tough spot, giving up 3 hits or 3 runs or whatever it might be? How are you going to feel at that moment? We've got to, again, coaches sometimes want to create this safe space and this place where when you get into it, it's like, okay, yeah, you figure it all out, but then you can't apply it because there's a different set of pressures, and the coach isn't there to hold the hands and all of those things. So again, going back to kind of where this rant started, talk about going on rant, you have to understand that the work gets harder. The work gets more intense because you have to go through your routines of what's gotten you to that point, and you have to put in new work to go to the next level. And I think that's what gets missed a lot of the time is like, oh, well, if I just do it for a little bit, I'll get better. Yeah, but the second that you stop, you're going to regret.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're so right. And also what's really cool is that alongside the work getting more difficult or the responsibilities increasing, your capacity also increases too. Your ability to hold more increases. And it's because you address those fears or hopefully address those fears with a coach so that when something comes, you're not triggered like you were before. There's a great analogy that I like, which is when you're in the ocean and there are waves, and it doesn't matter how big the wave is if you don't know how to swim, you're drowning no matter what. But if you learn the skills, if you know how to tread water and how to ride the waves can get bigger, but your capacity to stay afloat increases. And so that's sort of hopefully what happens when you are on this sort of whatever entrepreneurial or self-development journey that you're on, is that you're not only just doing things, gathering things on the outside, but you're increasing your capacity so that when the next wave comes, which it inevitably does, it's always coming, you are prepared and you can navigate it with ease.
Absolutely. It is a whole different level of progression. And yes, like I said, the path gets, the work gets more. You have to work more. But you're exactly right. Your capacity to handle it is there. The routine just keeps us in our kind of our baseline, right? That just gives us our baseline, but our baseline can continuously grow. And as long as we're doing the work to maintain the baseline, then, we're going to be at that baseline. Then as soon as we put in a little bit more work or a little more effort, then our baseline gets higher and higher. And I think that that's something that people have to understand is like, there are different levels every day. We all have days that are not at peak performance level, no matter who we are, right? There are days that even the best hitter in the world strikes out, has a slump. The biggest prospect in the world right now is Jackson Holliday. And everybody was, Jackson Holliday. He got moved up to major leagues and he got moved right back down to AAA because he just wasn't ready. When he got there, he wasn't ready for the moment. And yes, he's been groomed his whole life. And yes, he is going to be an incredible player, but that time wasn't right. So I think that's another understanding is like making the decision at the right time for yourself is another situation where it's that internal audit, like internalizing the decision and understanding the benefits, the payoffs, the sacrifices, and knowing when the time is right to make that decision, pull that trigger and get going. I think so many times that people will look it up, right? And it's like, they'll look up advice for entrepreneurs or advice for high performers or whatever. And it's like, just action, just do it. Be a doer. And it's like, in my opinion, that analogy is you're in a road and it goes two directions, right? You're at a crossroads and you got left and right. Well, if your vision is to the right and you're a doer, you just start doing, you start walking left because you were told you just got to start doing it. Well, you just got further away from your vision because you're heading the wrong direction, right? I am nowhere close to being a proponent of just do it. In sports, yes, absolutely. Just do it. Just perform. Just react. Just let your instincts take over because that's what's important. But when we're talking about a vision, that is something different because that's the beginning of a journey. right? We're at the beginning of a new branch of our journey. We need to take the time to think about it. We need to take the time to understand the entire environment. We need to see what's across the street. We need to see what's over there on that corner and over there on that corner. We need to look around, understand our environment, understand ourselves, and where that journey is going to take us to actually get the most out of that journey. Because it's not just about the vision. It's not just about getting to the end. It's about the path to get there. It's about understanding and feeling and making the most of the entire journey, not just the end result. And a lot of the times that's what happens is just do it, just take action. And we end up walking the wrong way away from our vision. We have to back.
Yeah, you're so right. And a decision doesn't always mean go do something. A great example is that one of my clients, this is kind of out of left field, but she's a former soccer player. I'm coaching her now in adulthood. She's navigating all of a sudden having a baby, and her partner left the house. They were having some struggles right after they had their child. They took a break. She's navigating single motherhood all of a sudden, never had to do it before, working full time, managing a house, managing animals, doing all of this stuff. And she would come to me day after day, like, oh my God, I'm just so tired. Like, I want to move my body. I want to do these things. I want to develop the confidence to go to the gym again, and whatever, doesn't matter what she was wanting, but she kept complaining about this and over and over coming in, right? Like, I need to figure out how to fix this. I need to figure out how to make more time. And we did a time audit. 1, she did not have any extra time in her current schedule. And so 2, the question was, who do you need to ask for help to make this possible for you? And the answer there was, well, my partner, we're not together, but we have a healthy relationship, and he says he will take our kid anytime. Like, he wants to be the dad. I'm not letting him. Okay. Are you ready to ask him for help and to let him? And that decision for her for week after week after week was no. F him. I'm not ready for that. And so, okay, can you see how you're deciding to stay busy? You're deciding to stay in this cycle. And that's 100% okay. Let's be really honest about what your decision is so that we know what the next step is. And for her, it was asking a parent for help or doing an extra hour of daycare so she could go for a walk after work. And then eventually that decision was to take action in that other step, to start that conversation. And the underlying thing for her in that moment was that she was afraid he would say no. She was afraid of rejection, of what if we start talking and everything falls apart. There's a lot at stake in that moment. She wasn't ready for it. And so decision doesn't mean forcing yourself to do something you're not ready for. It means also sometimes it's the decision to stay where you are and to accept that it's a choice and not a circumstance. And so for her now that she waited, we had worked on those fears, we worked on those abandonment issues, all of that. And eventually they had the conversation and she went for a weekend away just by herself, or is going out of town to do some sort of hiking thing. And she's empowered in that choice. And like you said, she's heading towards this ideal life that she's trying to make.
I love that you said own that decision, because figure out why you're making a decision and own that. And that's something that I'm big on. It's being unapologetically you, right? Unapologetic in your actions and in your decision. When you make that decision, own that shit. Don't be like, well, I made a decision because this person did it. No. Make the decision that's best for you and be unapologetic about it. It is, I made this decision. What you got to say about it? You ain't got nothing to say because it ain't your life, right? You have to be unapologetic in your decision-making process. It is, I'm making a decision for this reason, this reason, this reason, and I don't care what anybody thinks. You know, I was working on this. I don't even remember what I was doing when it happened, but it's, you know, I say that if you're not being called, if you want to be like this ultra successful person in business, especially in business, you have to be slightly crazy and delusional. And I say that because most people have this, I have to see it to believe it mentality. So if you tell people your dream, if you tell people your vision, and they're not saying that you're crazy or delusional, then you're not dreaming big enough. If you're truly somebody that wants to be a visionary, if you're somebody that wants to be the top dog, you're somebody that thinks that you belong in that Mark Zuckerberg, Elon Musk. It doesn't have to be in the tech industry, but you want to be that business powerhouse that everybody wants a piece of. You want to be the next Shaq of businesses, right? Like you want to own 47 Papa John's and this, that, and the other, right? That's who you want to be. Then you should be getting called crazy and delusional on a daily basis, because anybody that you tell your dream to should be like, I've never seen that happen. I've never seen anybody do that. So you're crazy. Because most people believe seeing is believing. Like you said, the U.S. especially is all about security and doing what the next step is supposed to be and doing, the right thing in the job and all that stuff that you talked about earlier. Insert here, right? That's the same thing. Because so most people, you tell them what you're thinking. If that's your goal, that's your vision, is to be that type of a person, you should be getting called crazy and delusional on a daily basis. And that's what I'm saying. You have to then say, hey, I'm cool with that. Own it. Own your decision. Own your vision. Own your path. Unapologetic to your decisions. Be true to yourself and 100% believing in what decisions you've made. And as long as you take the time, again, that we've been talking about, to do this internal audit and understand the benefits, consequences, the sacrifices of your decisions, then you don't have to second guess it. Because again, if you make a decision and then start second guessing it, you're doing yourself a disservice and you're wasting time. You're going in the wrong direction, because we're second guessing it. And you're not, like, that's the thing is, some people are in that camp of just do it, and then you can figure it out on your way, right? Again, you might head the wrong way, and then you got to turn around and come back this way, right? You got to make a big loop because you made the wrong decision. That's your figure it out process, is that big loop. If you sit there and make a decision now, then you don't have to necessarily make that big loop, right? But if we take that correct turn and we're heading towards our vision, but then we start second guessing, well, now we're turning around, then turning back around, then turning around, turning back around, and we're doing the same thing in that big old loop.
Definitely. It's like the client or the person who every time you talk to them, 1 week they're doing network marketing, 1 week they're getting a coaching certification, 1 week they're applying for new jobs, 1 week they want to be an influencer, and they're just kind of like plugging and playing. And as soon as there's a little bit of resistance, they second guess and turn around. But yeah, it's something you said too that is kind of resonating, is that having that belief and like being unapologetic and a little crazy in what your goals are and what your vision is and who it is that you want to be in the world. You have to have the audacity to believe you could do something you've never done before, despite having zero proof that it's happened. And that's how you can do that. The other day I sent the ballsiest email. Mind you, I've been in business for 2 years-ish, about 2 years. Doing great, love it, things are working. I sent a huge organization. I have the thing you're missing. I am the number one thing that can help you do this, and this is the gap I see. I don't know who I thought I was in that moment, but my point is, if I don't say it, no one else is gonna believe it. If I don't believe it for myself and take that stance, then nothing's gonna happen. And so sometimes just playing the part, like you said, that little part of crazy audacity, having the nerve to do that, the next thing comes.
Absolutely. I mean, that's exactly what it is. I mean, if you look, I'm going to use an example from Grant Cardone. Not that I'm a huge Grant Cardone fan or anything. I respect him as a businessman, but I'm not like a subscriber or anything. But when he was on Undercover Billionaire, and their task is, hey, we're going to drop you off in a city that you've never been to. You don't have your phone. You can't use your name. You can't use anything. We're going to give you $100. You need to make $1 million in the next 9 days. And he walks in, he finds an RV, like a Camping World type place, right, where they sell RVs. And he walks in there and he says, "Hey, dude, I need a place to stay tonight. I need to stay in one of your RVs." He's like, I'll do whatever you want. Sweep the lot, whatever, but I need to stay in one of your RVs. I'm new to town. I don't have money. I don't have nothing. I need to stay in one of your RVs. Because he knew that I was going to work. I was going to give him a house, and he knew that he could do whatever the guy asked, and he believed in it. He believed that it was going to work. He believed that he could walk right in there and get himself a place to stay. And most people would have been like, "Dude, you're crazy as hell." But because he believed in it, because he believed in what he was doing, the guy said, "Sure, you can go stay in this model right here." Gave him the keys, let him go stay. Right? It's understanding that confidence level has to be there. And if you don't believe in yourself, they certainly, right? So that's why you have to be that unapologetic person, because it's like, once you make that decision, you got to make it a downhill journey, right? You got to make it, ball is now rolling. Don't turn around and try to push it back uphill. You've got to say, "All right, cool, I'm going to jump on top of this rock and we're going to roll it," right? You can't be like, oh, no, I made the decision. What are we going to do now? Because you're going to get run over. You're going to get run over. It's not going to work, because no one's going to do it for you. Nobody's going to say, "Oh yeah, hey, I believe in your vision. Hop on. Let me carry you there." Not going to happen, because they have their own vision. Like, you have to be selfish in that journey. You have to understand, like, hey, this is what I want to do. This is my vision. This is who I'm supposed to be, my destiny, whatever you want to call it. Once you make that decision on that journey, cool, own it, ride it. And every time you get to a crossroads, like I said, it's an organic journey. Every time you're going to get to a lot of crossroads. You're going to get to a lot of forks in the road. And you've got to make a decision at that time on what's best for you at the time. So are we seriously going to go through this whole journey every time we get to a fork and be like, and we're going to,
Right.
We're going to go one way, and then we're going to turn around and then go, and then turn around, and then, you know how long it's going to take to get there if we keep turning around every time we make a decision?
Yeah. I like to say that every either setback or fork in the road is an opportunity to double down on what you're already doing. So let's say you have a $0 month in your business, straight up zero. There are quite a few decisions you can make in that moment. But if you're doubling down, if every time you already know my default is double down on what I'm doing, it's going to work. What does it mean for me to double down? What does it mean for me to double down? Does it mean scratching a whole business plan and starting a new one? Does it mean doing what I was doing because it worked the past 6 months and this is a fluke? Whatever that means for you in that moment. I'm in Chicago right now. I grew up in Florida, so being here sometimes can be difficult in the winter. And in November and December, I went to the gym 2 times. Mind you, I'm someone who's been consistently exercising since I was like 5. Like, I played soccer since I was 5, and then at the gym since I'm like 13 or 14. Well, I like to call it the winter scaries this winter. Things were hard on my mental health, and moving my body, the same thing I've done my whole life, was a lot more difficult. I made it to the gym twice in November, twice in December, I think 3 or 4 times in January, and same for February. Now, I was like walking, doing other things, but I am someone who goes to the gym like 3 to 4 times a week. And if you just look at that short period of time, at any point in November, December, January, I could have thrown in the towel and been like, well, I should just cancel my gym membership. I am not making it. This is not working for me. Like, I'll just, let me not go in January and I'll try again in February. But every single month I was like, okay, this is going to be the month where it's going to be different. This is going to be the month where I get back to my roots, where I know I'm 100% capable. And in February or March, I went like 4 or 5 times, and then 6 and 8. And now I'm back to consistently going. And I'm so proud of myself for only going twice in November and only going twice in December. And it's not a representation of everything I'm capable of. That's just a side rant. And then something I want to add here, because I will forget. Have you heard of Steve Hardison and the the best offensive lineman in the NFL story? TBOLIT NFL.
No, I don't think.
No. Okay, so it's a YouTube video. Anyone that listens to this, watch it. It's 2 hours. It's worth it. I'll give like the briefest detail, but so Steve Hardison is a coach that I think he charges like $100,000 to work with him for a year, or $500,000 to work with him for a year. It's an investment. He's like a top tier coach, and he was watching an NFL, someone who was like the first round draft. He ended up not being terrible in the NFL and ended up becoming like a third string, and then just straight up dropped from the team. And he was like, whoa, that guy, like we said, needs mindset coaching, needs to figure out his triggers. And so he's searching for him. He's finding connections. He gets in contact with someone else, like his old teammate. And his old teammate says, hey, he actually left to New York. Can you do what you were going to do for him, for me? And he's like, maybe. I can't do what I was going to do for him, for you, but I can do what I can do for you. And so this guy, he's the offensive lineman. He comes and meets with Steve Hardison, and Steve Hardison asks him, who are you? What position do you play in football? He goes, oh, and who's the best at it? He's, oh, I don't know. He starts naming players, and Steve Hardison says, no, we're going to role play. Let me do this. Let me do this for you. Ask me who the best offensive lineman is. He goes, okay, Steve, who's the best offense? Are you effing kidding me? Are you asking me who is the best offensive lineman? I'm the best offensive lineman. Don't you ever disrespect my name like that. Screw you. Sit your ass down. Don't ever ask me that question again. And so it was just this energy he was showing to this player. And then he said, okay, you know what? Our session's done. Get out of my house. And he's leaving. And Steve Harson's like, I want you to go sit in your car and think about that for 3 hours. Think about what came up for you in that moment. And this guy sends an email back to Steve Hardison later in the night, like, thank you. I want you at every one of my games. Like, I am the best offensive lineman in the NFL. Full send, 100%. I'm the best. TBOLIT NFL. Talk to you soon. And it became this giant movement where this guy whose stats aren't amazing just announced that he's the best. He's the best in the best league of football. And because of that, and because of his roots, like, it just, all of these connections start occurring for this guy. Steve connects him to someone who connects him to someone else, and it becomes a movement because he took that, he had the audacity to make that statement and to decide that that was going to be his truth. And he was like, became the best. I don't think he, like, it died down essentially, but for a while he was like, his stats were at the top. He's like, I'm the captain, just a bunch of crazy things. So it's much more impactful watching the video, and it's 100% worthwhile.
Absolutely. I literally have been going through this with the team that I coach. I don't know how, but I got every kid that doesn't believe in themselves on my little league division. And my kid is somebody that thinks he is the best. He is one that legitimately will think that nobody can touch him. And he puts in the work to make it happen. So, like, obviously, performance coaching side of me shines kind of in him a little bit. So I've been dealing with him, his personality, since he was 5 years old, 3 years old, however old he was when he started playing TV. And I've been coaching him ever since. Ever since he started, I've been coaching him. Well, now I've got these kids, and most of them don't believe it. And I walk up to one of the kids that during the game this past weekend, and I said, hey, man, you're going to get a hit, right? I'm going to try. Like the most pissed voice. Right? And then I'm like, no. You're going to get a hit, right? Yeah. No. You're a great hitter, right? Tell me you're a great hitter. And like, I did not let him go into the box until he said, I am a great hitter, and said it with confidence. Because listen, again, if you don't believe in you, nobody else is going to. If you're not confident enough to send that ballsy email, nobody else is going to do it for you. So if you don't have the confidence stepping in to perform that you're going to kill it, then nobody else is going to do it for you. Nobody else can do it. Yeah, that's what I say to the players all the time. It's like, hey, I can give you all the tools. I can put you in the right mindset. I can do all of these things, but I'm not inside of your head in the moment. Can't be. It's not possible. And it's one of those things that, what you were just saying, it's, you have to understand that what level do you want to execute at? Like, if you want to execute at that top level, you have to say, I'm going to execute at that top level. And even if something goes wrong, like you said, double down. Oh, well, I'm still the best. Look, I'm still the best, even though that happened. That happened, but I'm still better than everybody else. Like, you have to be able to shrug off the bad side of it and say, that ain't me. That's somebody else. That won't me. I'm somebody, like, I'm the best. Like you said, you went 2 times. You're like, that's not me. You went 2 more times to the gym, and that's still not me. And until you got back to where you wanted to be or who you knew you were, you shrugged it off. That's not me. That's not me. That's not me. That's not me. You have to be able to shrug it off. Like you said, double down on what is you. What is your decision? What is your vision? What is your path that you're on? What is it going to take to get you continuing on the journey in the right direction? Like, maybe you stubbed your toe and the rock caught up to you, right? Oh, you tripped a little bit. That's fine. We can shake that off. Sometimes we got to tie our shoe, right? Bend down, tie your shoe a little bit before you can take off, start running again. It's all good. Those things happen. Everybody's going to have a stumble of some sort. But that doesn't define nobody. That stumble doesn't define anybody. I'll tell one more story. And again, this is an athletic story, but I think that this is something that rings so heavy in all performance. So a girl that went to my high school ended up running is one of the best 100-meter hurdles women in the world. Now, she can't remember exactly what year it was. I think it might have been 2012, maybe. Maybe it was 2016. So it was 2012 or 2016. She's in the Olympic trials. She's the number 1 hurdler in the world. By far, everybody knows that she's number 1. So it's a foregone conclusion that she's making the Olympics. In the Olympic trials, she clips a hurdle and finishes 4th by like 100th of a second or 1,000th of a second, something like that. And the U.S. team only takes 3 hurdles. She's just blown 4 years of preparation. She was a foregone conclusion. Everybody thought she was going to make it to the Olympics and win the gold medal because she was the number 1 hurdler in the world. She doesn't even make the team because of a mistake in one race. One race, one mistake cost her 4 years of preparation. What does she do the next race out? She goes to a professional Diamond League event and sets a new world record. Right? She stumbled and could have let that completely derail her career and who she was and let it define her as, you were supposed to be an Olympic, hurdler, and she didn't make the team. The next event out, she went and set a new world. That's the mindset you got. Just because you stumble, even if it's in a big moment, nah, that's not me. Nah, that ain't me. That ain't who I am. I know who I am. Unapologetically yourself and own your decisions and own who you are. And if something happens, nah, that's not me. Swipe it off.
Mm-hmm.
Wipe it off. Keep going.
Yeah. And if you're someone listening to this that thinks, wow, this is really great advice for somebody, like someone could really use this. Just a little spicy check for yourself too, that this is for you too. Like if you're like, wow, like I wish that could be me, or this could be really great for someone else to hear. That's a really great sign that this is who this is for. So just want to plug that in there.
Absolutely. This isn't specific to just athletics. It's same thing like you said, you have a client that was a new mother and she was a single mom for the first time. And it's like, listen, performance is performance. It doesn't matter what it's in. Like,
Yeah.
because, hey, you might be raising somebody that is going to be a world record holder, right? Taking care of somebody, right? The stuff that you're doing now is impactful in the future for yourself, for the kid, for the company you're working for the company you want to start. All of the things that you're doing now are building blocks for what's going to be in the future, right? You're building this foundation just by listening to something, by taking the step to listen to something that's going to make you better. Like, that's still a step in the right direction.
Definitely. And this client, actually, the way that she ended up working with me was that she sent me a message on Facebook and said, Alyssa, I keep seeing your posts. Something's got to give in my life. Like, I need the push. I don't know what that means. Can you help me? And that was her decision, right? The rest of this stuff happened after that. After she was, something's got to give. I can't do it. Something's not working. I'm not happy. Can you help? I'm like, oh, maybe. Well, let's see. And within our time too, not only did she navigate this single motherhood and kill it, she also got like a $7 or $8 raise. She's applying to other jobs that give her the summer off. She's going to concerts and having fun. And so sometimes it's simply the decision of acknowledging that you're struggling, or acknowledging that something that you've been trying isn't working. And then that decision can, change. It can change everything.
Right. It's the belief that that's not who you're meant to be, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's not who she was meant to be. She's not meant to be this person that's in this cycle, right? She knew, hey, something's got to give. I've got to do something because this isn't me. That's what it is. It's like the realization that, hey, that's not me. That's not me. That's not me. That's not who I am. That's not me. That's not me. Staying true to yourself. Again, it all comes back to that same thing, and then making the decision to fix it, right? And it's that decision to fix these feelings of that's not me. Because again, if we're in this situation, if we're listening to this podcast, we're listening to something because then we're in a situation where we feel like there's more, right? We feel like there's something more, and we're not there. So if you're listening to this, there's nobody that it's not, because we all want to get better at something. My dad, I know he's listening, right? He's about to retire. So what is there that's more for him? But he shoots competitive archery. So there is something that he can get out of it as a, 60-something-year-old dude. I don't know. I can't think right now.
Uh-oh.
But he's in his 60s, right? He's in his 60s. He is at the end of the career cycle. Does that mean that he can't get something out of it? No, of course it doesn't. He shoots competitive archery. He does things with his grandkids, right, that are competitive and fun and things like that, right? There's always something that is, for lack of better words, there's always something trying to pull us off track, right? We have this organic journey that continuously talk. We have this vision that we want to get to. There's always something that's trying to derail us. There's always something that can get. There's always that, that's not me moment. I got to tie my shoe. I only went to the gym 2 times, right? There's always some sort of something that we're going to get to. And I know I use this a lot, but you've got to climb down sometimes to climb up. That's what rock climbers talk about all the time, or mountain climbers talk about all the time. Sometimes you have to go down to go up. And that's something that you have to embrace. You have to understand and embrace that. It's like, hey, listen, it's cool. It's cool if there's a slowdown. It's cool if I have a month that my business does 0. Now, it might be painful, but it's okay. Thomas Davis was a NFL linebacker that had 3 knee surgeries. I guarantee you every one of them knee surgeries was painful, right? But he had 3 ACL surgeries before he made it to the NFL. Then he made it to the NFL and was one of the best linebackers. The pain doesn't necessarily mean it's the end. It can make it the beginning. You got to double down. Rob Gronkowski could have never played football in the NFL. He broke his back in college and had an insurance policy on himself. And he had to make that decision his senior year of college. Do I want to take this $4 million to never play football again? Or do I want to go through the rehab of rehabbing my back, which we all know back problems, once you have them, they pretty much stick with you. That's what people say, right? So I want to go through this process of rehabbing my back and, put in the work to then get back out on the field and go get hit, have to put all this, it's pain, surgery, pain, rehab, pain, practice, pain, to make it to the NFL to be more pain. Do I want to go through that, or do I just want this $4 million? Obviously, he made the right decision for him and one of the greatest tight ends of all time. But just because we stumble, a lot of the time that is where the journey gets better after. We have to go down sometimes to go up. Well, I feel like a preacher or something. Good. Look, I was off the floor right there. Look, you just have to give me an hour into the podcast and it be like almost the end of it, and then I'm
and you get
like finally
good
say
stuff.
That's right. Say something insightful at that point. It's but yeah, it's that thing that it doesn't matter who it is. It doesn't matter who's listening. There is something in it for everybody because everybody's on the journey. Everybody has some sort of vision that they want to accomplish. So we can all get something out of it. Not me, because I'm not going to listen back. I hate it. I'm not going to do that.
So hard.
But everybody else has to listen to it at least 8 times. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure of an episode. It has been a great episode, and I am sure that we could keep going and we might have to have a part 2 because I'm sure that there's a lot more that we could cover, but I really want to thank you for your time. And just one more time, kind of shout out, where people can find you, all your information, all that good stuff.
Yeah. So if I sparked your interest and you want to know more about me and what I do, you can go to beyondtheathlete.net. That is my website. Alyssa Herman is my Facebook, 2 N's at the end. I also run a Facebook page called So You're a Former Athlete And, which has 700 plus former athletes. We're all in there growing and learning and supporting one another. That's the same name as my podcast, So You Are a Former Athlete And. Reach out. We can get something scheduled or come say hi.
Awesome. I thank you so much for your time. And listeners, you know it. We'll be back next week. Let's go.